It was one of those mornings where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Rachel stood in her apartment parking lot, staring at her car with complete disbelief. The engine had died. Just like that. No warning, no strange sounds the day before, nothing. She turned the key again, hoping for a miracle, but all she got was a sad clicking noise that seemed to mock her frustration. She checked her phone, 7 in the morning. Her presentation at work started at 9, and she had a 45-minute drive ahead of her. Well, she used to have a 45-minute drive. Now she had a very expensive paperweight sitting in a parking spot. Perfect. Just perfect, she muttered, grabbing her bag and laptop case from the back seat. The nearest train station was a 15-minute walk away. Rachel had lived in the city for 3 years and had never once taken the train to work. She drove everywhere, but today wasn't giving her much choice. By the time she reached the station, her feet hurt and she was already sweating despite the cool morning air. The station was busier than she expected, filled with people in expensive suits carrying leather briefcases and designer coffee cups. This wasn't her usual crowd. At her regular commute, she'd see students, retail workers, and regular office people like herself. These people looked like they ran companies. Rachel checked the board and found a train heading in the right direction. Track 7. She hurried down the platform, her heels clicking against the concrete. The train was nicer than she expected. Much nicer. The seats were cushioned leather instead of the usual plastic, and everything looked clean and well-maintained. She found an empty window seat about halfway down the car and collapsed into it, grateful to finally sit down. As the train pulled away from the station, Rachel closed her eyes for a moment. The gentle rocking motion was actually kind of pleasant. Maybe this wasn't going to be such a terrible day after all. She'd make it to work on time, nail her presentation, and deal with her car situation later. She pulled out her phone to review her notes one more time, shifting in her seat to get comfortable. That's when her foot hit something under the seat in front of her. At first, she thought it was just trash. People left things on trains all the time, but when she bent down to look, she saw it was an envelope. A nice one, too, made of thick cream-colored paper. The kind you'd use for a wedding invitation or something important. Rachel glanced around. No one seemed to be looking for anything. The other passengers were absorbed in their phones, laptops, or newspapers. She reached down and picked up the envelope. Her breath caught when she saw the writing on the front. It was done in careful handwriting, the kind that took time and effort. It said, "To whoever finds this, please read. Time is running out." Rachel's heart started beating faster. This wasn't some forgotten grocery list or old receipt. Someone had left this here on purpose. Someone wanted it to be found. She turned the envelope over in her hands. It was sealed, but not too carefully, as if the person who closed it was in a hurry. Part of her wanted to just leave it on the seat and forget about it. Mind her own business. Get to work and have a normal day. But another part of her, the curious part that got her in trouble sometimes, needed to know what was inside. She looked around one more time. Still, no one was paying attention to her. The businessman across the aisle was typing furiously on his laptop. The woman 2 seats ahead had earbuds in and was staring out the window. An older man near the door was reading the financial section of the newspaper. Rachel carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten on matching stationery. The handwriting was shaky in places, like the person had been nervous or scared while writing it. Rachel began to read, and with each line her eyes grew wider. The letter started simply enough. "My name is Jennifer. If you're reading this, then I've failed to do what I needed to do, or worse, I've been stopped from doing it." Rachel's stomach tightened. What did that mean? Stopped by who? She kept reading. Jennifer explained that she worked for one of the biggest companies in the city. She didn't name it directly, but she said anyone who rode this particular train route would know which one. She was an executive assistant, someone who saw everything, heard everything, and had access to everything, and what she'd seen had terrified her. The letter described financial fraud, money being moved around through fake companies, records being altered, investors being lied to, millions of dollars disappearing while everyone at the top pretended everything was fine. Jennifer wrote that she'd spent weeks verifying what she'd found, making copies of documents, recording conversations, collecting proof. But then something happened. Another employee, Someone high up in the finance department had started asking questions about the same irregularities Jennifer had noticed. 2 weeks later, that person died in what was called an accident, a car crash on a rainy night on a road they traveled every day. Jennifer didn't believe it was an accident. She wrote that she'd become terrified after that. She didn't know who she could trust. The company was powerful, with connections everywhere. Even the police, she suspected, might not help her. So she'd written this letter and left it on the train, hoping someone honest would find it. Someone who wasn't connected to the company or the powerful people protecting it. Someone who might be brave enough to help. At the bottom of the letter were 2 things that made Rachel's hands shake. First, a phone number with instructions to call it if she was willing to help. Second, a sentence that made her blood run cold. If you're reading this, I may already be silenced, but please don't let them get away with this. Rachel read the letter 3 times, each time hoping she'd misunderstood something, but the words didn't change. This was real. Someone named Jennifer was in serious danger, possibly already hurt or worse because she'd discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. The train began to slow down, approaching the next station. Rachel quickly folded the letter and put it back in the envelope, then shoved it into her bag. Her hands were trembling. She looked around the train car again, seeing it differently now. One of these people could work for that company. One of them might even be the person Jennifer was afraid of. The businessman with his laptop. The well-dressed woman with the expensive handbag. The older man with the newspaper who seemed to be watching everyone without really looking at anyone. Rachel felt exposed suddenly, like she was carrying something dangerous. Which she realized she was. This letter was evidence of a crime. Maybe evidence that could send powerful people to prison. Maybe evidence that had already gotten someone killed. The train doors opened and several people got off. Rachel stayed in her seat, frozen. She had 10 more minutes until her stop. 10 minutes to decide what she was going to do. She could throw the letter away. Pretend she never found it. Go to work, give her presentation, live her normal, safe life, or she could make that phone call. Rachel pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. Her reflection stared back at her from the black glass, and she barely recognized the worried expression on her own face. What would she do? The train lurched forward, carrying her toward a decision that would change everything. Rachel didn't make the call right away. She went to work, sat through her presentation in a daze, and somehow managed to answer questions without completely embarrassing herself. But she couldn't focus. The letter in her bag felt like it was burning a hole through the leather. Every time someone walked past her desk, she jumped. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced. By lunchtime, she'd made up her mind. She couldn't just ignore this. If Jennifer was real, if she was in trouble, Rachel had to at least try to help. She left the office building and walked 3 blocks to a quiet park. Finding an empty bench away from other people, she pulled out the letter and stared at the phone number. Her finger hovered over her phone screen for a long moment before she finally typed in the numbers and hit call. It rang 4 times. Rachel was about to hang up when someone answered. Hello? The voice was female, quiet and shaky, like the person was afraid of being overheard. Rachel's mouth went dry. Hi, is this Jennifer? There was a long pause. Then who is this? How did you get this number? I found your letter. On the train this morning. The 7:15 from Union Station. Another pause. Rachel could hear breathing on the other end, quick and nervous. You actually called? Jennifer finally said, and her voice cracked slightly. I didn't think anyone would. I left 3 letters on different trains over the past week. You're the first person to reach out. Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. Your letter said you were in danger, that someone might have already hurt you. Are you okay? I'm okay. For now. Jennifer's voice dropped even lower, but I don't know for how much longer. They're watching me. I can feel it. My boss asked me strange questions yesterday about whether I've been working late, whether I've accessed any files I shouldn't have. He was fishing, trying to see if I know something. Who's your boss? James Morrison. He's the CEO of Morrison Tech Industries. Have you heard of it? Rachel had. Everyone in the city had. Morrison Tech was one of the largest companies in the region, employing thousands of people and worth billions of dollars. James Morrison himself was practically a celebrity. His face was on magazine covers. He gave speeches at business conferences. Last year, the mayor gave him an award for his contributions to the city's economy. Yeah, I know the company, Rachel said quietly. Your letter mentioned fraud, financial crimes. Are you sure about what you found? I've been his executive assistant for 4 years. I have access to everything. His emails, his calendars, his private files. 3 months ago, I was organizing some old documents and found records that didn't make sense. Money being transferred to companies I'd never heard of. Invoices for services that were never provided. So I started digging deeper. Jennifer's voice became more animated as she talked, like she'd been holding this inside for so long that it was a relief to finally tell someone. There are at least 7 shell companies that don't actually exist. They're just names on paper. But Morrison has been funneling money through them for years. We're talking about millions of dollars, money that should have gone to investors, to employees, to legitimate expenses. He's been stealing it all. Rachel felt sick. And the person who died? The one you mentioned in your letter? David Chen. He was the chief financial officer. Good man, honest, with a wife and 2 kids. He started noticing irregularities in the accounts about a month ago. He came to Morrison's office one evening and I heard them arguing. David was saying he had to report what he'd found, that he had a legal obligation. Morrison was trying to convince him to stay quiet, offering him money, promotions, whatever he wanted. What happened? David refused. Said he couldn't live with himself if he covered this up. 2 days later, his car went off the road on his way home from work. The police said he must have fallen asleep at the wheel or lost control in the rain. But David was the most careful driver I knew. He never even got speeding tickets. Rachel's hand was shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. This was bigger than she'd imagined. More dangerous. Jennifer, if this is true, you need to go to the police, to the FBI, to someone who can actually do something about it. I tried. Jennifer's voice broke. I called a detective last week. Left an anonymous tip. 2 days later, I saw that same detective having lunch with Morrison at an expensive restaurant downtown. They were laughing together like old friends. You think the detective told him? I think Morrison has connections everywhere. Police, politicians, judges. That's how men like him stay powerful. They know who to pay off, who to threaten, who to control. Rachel stood up from the bench and started pacing. This was insane. She was just a regular person with a regular job. She wasn't equipped to deal with corrupt billionaires and dirty cops. So what do you want me to do? Rachel asked. Why leave the letter at all if there's no one who can help? Because I have proof. Real solid evidence. Financial records, emails, recorded phone conversations. Everything needed to put Morrison away for a very long time. But I can't hold on to it. They're getting suspicious. Yesterday, someone broke into my apartment while I was at work. They didn't take anything valuable, just moved things around. It was a message. They wanted me to know they could get to me anytime. Rachel's blood ran cold. Where's the evidence now? Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't trace back to me. But I need someone else to have it. Someone outside of all this who can get it to the right people. Someone Morrison doesn't know and can't touch. You want me to take your evidence? Yes. Jennifer's voice was pleading now. I know it's a lot to ask. I know you don't know me and this isn't your problem. But I don't have anyone else. Everyone I work with is either part of this or too scared to help. My family lives 3 states away and I can't risk putting them in danger. You're the only person who called that number. Rachel stopped pacing. She looked around the park at all the normal people having their normal lunches, living their normal lives. She could still be one of them. She could hang up right now, throw away the letter and forget any of this happened. But she thought about David Chen, about his wife and 2 kids who thought his death was just a tragic accident, about how many other people Morrison might have hurt over the years, about how many more he would hurt if someone didn't stop him. Okay, Rachel heard herself say. Tell me where the evidence is. Jennifer let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it for days. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's a storage facility on Riverside Avenue, Unit 247. The key is taped under the bench at the bus stop right outside the facility. Inside the unit, there's a blue backpack. Everything you need is in there. When should I get it? Tonight, after dark. And Rachel? Jennifer paused. Be careful. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't bring your phone. They can track phones. And whatever you do, don't let anyone see you taking that backpack. How will I know what to do with it once I have it? There's a USB drive in the front pocket with instructions. Everything's explained there. Just please, once you have it, move fast. The longer you hold on to it, the more danger you're in. Rachel swallowed hard. Jennifer, are you going to be okay? There was a long silence. Then Jennifer said, "I don't know, but at least the truth will get out. That's what matters now. Maybe you should leave town. Go somewhere safe until this is over. I've thought about it, but running would make me look guilty. Right now Morrison suspects me but doesn't know for sure. If I disappear, he'll know, and he'll destroy all the evidence at the company before anyone can get to it. I need to stay and act normal for as long as possible." The line was quiet for a moment, both women thinking about what came next. "I have to go," Jennifer finally said. "I've been on this call too long. Remember Riverside Avenue, Unit 247 tonight." "Wait," Rachel said quickly. "How will I reach you again?" "You won't. After this, lose this number. Don't try to contact me. It's safer for both of us that way. If everything goes according to plan, we'll never have to speak again." "And Rachel, thank you for being brave enough to make this call." The line went dead. Rachel stood in the park, her phone still pressed to her ear, trying to process what she'd just agreed to do. She was about to steal evidence from a storage unit. Evidence that could bring down one of the most powerful men in the city. Evidence that may have already gotten one person killed. She looked at her watch. 8 hours until dark. 8 hours to decide if she was really going to go through with this. 8 hours to wonder if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or the most important decision she'd ever make. Rachel barely touched her dinner that night. She pushed pasta around her plate while her roommate Kelly talked about her day. Kelly worked at a bookstore and was complaining about a difficult customer, but Rachel couldn't focus on a single word. "Earth to Rachel," Kelly said, waving her hand. "You've been weird all day." "What's going on?" Rachel forced a smile. "Just work stuff. Stressful week. Want to watch a movie? That new thriller just came out on streaming. Actually, I think I'm going to go for a walk. Clear my head." Kelly raised an eyebrow. "A walk at night? You never go for walks." "First time for everything," Rachel said, standing up and grabbing her jacket. She left her phone on her bed, just like Jennifer had instructed. The apartment suddenly felt too small, too safe, too normal for what she was about to do. She grabbed her keys and headed out before Kelly could ask more questions. The storage facility was a 30-minute walk across town. Rachel had looked it up earlier and memorized the route. No GPS, no phone, no digital trail. She felt paranoid, but Jennifer's warnings kept echoing in her head. They can track phones. They're watching. The streets were quieter than usual for a Thursday evening. Rachel kept her head down and walked quickly, her hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets. Every car that passed made her nervous. Every person she saw made her wonder if they were watching her. She was being ridiculous, she told herself. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody was following her. She was just a random woman going for a walk. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back. Riverside Avenue was in an older part of the city, lined with warehouses and industrial buildings that had seen better days. The storage facility sat between an auto repair shop and an abandoned restaurant. A tall chain-link fence surrounded the property, and the sign out front had half its letters burned out. It read Arvers de Saint-Erage in flickering neon. Rachel found the bus stop right outside, just like Jennifer had said. She glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then bent down and felt under the bench. Her fingers touched something smooth. Tape. She pulled, and a small silver key came free. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This was it. This was real. She was really doing this. The facility's gate was locked, but the key Jennifer left her worked on the pedestrian entrance. Rachel slipped inside, the gate clanging shut behind her with a sound that made her jump. The facility was a maze of identical orange doors, each one numbered. Security lights cast strange shadows between the rows of units. She found Unit 247 in the back corner. Her hand shook as she fitted the key into the lock. It turned with a soft click and the door rolled up with a loud metallic screech that seemed to echo across the entire facility. Rachel froze, waiting to see if anyone came running. Nothing. Just silence and the distant sound of traffic. She pulled out her lighter, the only light source she'd brought that wouldn't create a digital record. The small flame illuminated a space about the size of a closet. It was mostly empty except for a few cardboard boxes stacked in the corner, and sitting right in the middle of the floor, a blue backpack. Rachel grabbed it quickly. It was heavier than she expected. She unzipped the main compartment and saw stacks of folders, a laptop, several USB drives, and what looked like an old voice recorder. She didn't have time to examine everything now. She needed to get out of here. She was about to close the door when she heard it. Footsteps. Someone was walking through the facility, and they were getting closer. Rachel's blood turned to ice. She quickly pulled the door down as quietly as she could, leaving it unlocked. Then she crouched behind a nearby dumpster, clutching the backpack to her chest. Two men appeared at the end of the row. They both wore dark clothes and were walking with purpose, checking unit numbers as they went. Morrison said it was somewhere in this section, one of them said. His voice was deep and rough. 247, the other replied. That's what the assistant's phone record showed. She called someone from near here earlier this week. Rachel's heart stopped. They knew. Somehow they knew about the storage unit. The men stopped right in front of Unit 247. One of them tried the door and found it unlocked. They pulled it open and Rachel heard them moving boxes around inside. The backpack's gone, the first man said. Someone already took it. When? We've had eyes on this place since yesterday. Must have been today. Call Morrison. Tell him someone has the evidence. Rachel couldn't breathe. She pressed herself against the dumpster, trying to become invisible. If they looked in her direction, if they walked around the corner, they would see her. One of the men pulled out a phone. Rachel could hear him talking, but couldn't make out the words. The conversation lasted less than a minute. When he hung up, he turned to his partner. He wants us to check the security footage. See who came in tonight? This place has cameras. 2 at the front gate. Let's go. They walked away quickly, heading back toward the entrance. Rachel stayed frozen behind the dumpster for a full minute after they disappeared, too terrified to move. Her mind was racing. Security cameras. They would see her on the footage. They would know what she looked like. They would find her. She had to move. Now, Rachel ran. She didn't care about being quiet or careful anymore. She sprinted through the maze of storage units, clutching the backpack, her footsteps echoing off the metal doors. She reached the back fence and realized she couldn't go out the front gate. The men were there, probably watching the security monitors. The fence was about 8 feet tall. Rachel threw the backpack over first, then jumped and grabbed the top of the chain link. Her hands burned as she climbed, and she felt her jacket tear on the barbed wire at the top. She didn't care. She hauled herself over and dropped to the other side, landing hard on the pavement. She grabbed the backpack and ran into the dark streets, not looking back. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs felt like they would give out. She ran until she was far enough away that she couldn't see the storage facility anymore. Finally, she stopped in an alley between 2 buildings, gasping for air. She looked down at the backpack in her hands. This was what Jennifer had risked everything for. This was what had gotten David Chen killed. And now people were actively looking for it. Rachel realized she couldn't go home. If they had security footage of her face, they could figure out who she was. They probably already were. Going back to her apartment would be walking into a trap. She needed help. Real help. But who could she trust? Jennifer had said the police were compromised. Morrison had connections everywhere. Then Rachel remembered something. Last year, she had read an article about a journalist who'd exposed corruption in the city's construction department. The article had won awards and led to several arrests. The journalist's name was Vincent Torres, and he worked for the city's largest independent newspaper. If anyone could help her, someone who wasn't afraid of powerful people and knew how to handle evidence safely, it would be a journalist. Rachel pulled the backpack open and dug through it until she found the USB drive Jennifer had mentioned. She went to a 24-hour internet cafe 3 blocks away. The place was nearly empty. Just a tired-looking employee behind the counter and 2 teenagers playing video games in the corner. She paid for 30 minutes on a computer in the back, away from everyone else. Her hands were still shaking as she plugged in the USB drive. The drive contained hundreds of files. Bank statements, email chains, recorded phone conversations, spreadsheets full of financial data. There was also a document labeled "Read Me First." Rachel opened it. Jennifer's instructions were clear. The evidence needed to get to someone who couldn't be bought or intimidated, someone with a platform big enough that Morrison couldn't silence them. The document included names of 3 journalists Jennifer had researched, people with reputations for integrity. Vincent Torres was at the top of the list. The document also included contact information and a warning. Don't trust anyone in law enforcement until this goes public. Morrison owns too many people. The only way to stay safe is to make sure the world knows what he's done. Once it's public, he can't hurt you without drawing more attention to himself. Rachel spent the next 20 minutes copying files onto a second USB drive the cafe sold. She needed a backup in case something happened to the backpack. When she was done, she cleared the computer's history, grabbed everything, and left. She found a cheap hotel near the bus station, the kind that didn't ask questions if you paid cash. The room smelled like cigarettes and the carpet was stained, but it had a lock on the door and that was all that mattered. Rachel sat on the bed and pulled out the laptop from the backpack. She needed to contact Vincent Torres. She needed to do it tonight. Every hour she waited was another hour for Morrison's people to find her. She opened the laptop and created a new email account with a fake name. Then she typed a message she hoped would be enough to get a journalist's attention. I have evidence of massive fraud at Morrison Tech Industries. Evidence that connects James Morrison to embezzlement, bribery, and possibly murder. I need to meet with you as soon as possible. This is real and I'm in danger. Please help. She hit send and stared at the screen. All she could do now was wait and hope that Vincent Torres checked his email tonight. Hope that he would believe her. Hope that she would survive long enough to tell the truth. Outside her window, the city lights blinked in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Morrison's people were looking for her, and somewhere Jennifer was still pretending everything was normal, playing her part, waiting for Rachel to do what needed to be done. Rachel lay back on the uncomfortable bed, the backpack clutched to her chest, and wondered what tomorrow would bring. Whatever it was, there was no going back now. Rachel didn't sleep at all that night. She sat propped up against the headboard watching the door, jumping at every sound in the hallway. The backpack never left her lap. Every few minutes she checked the email account, hoping for a response from Vincent Torres. By 3 a.m, she'd almost given up hope. Then the notification came. I received your message. If this is legitimate, meet me at Riverside Park by the fountain 7 a.m. Come alone. Bring proof. Rachel read it 3 times. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by doubt. What if this was a trap? What if Morrison had gotten to Vincent? What if she was walking straight into danger? But what choice did she have? She couldn't run forever. She couldn't keep this evidence hidden. Jennifer was counting on her. David Chen's family deserved justice, and if she didn't act now, Morrison would find her eventually. She spent the next few hours going through the files on the laptop, trying to understand the full scope of what Jennifer had collected. The evidence was overwhelming. Years of financial records showing money being siphoned through fake companies, emails where Morrison discussed bribing city officials, voice recordings of him threatening employees who asked too many questions. One recording in particular made Rachel's blood run cold. It was Morrison on the phone with someone talking about David Chen. The problem's been handled, Morrison said in the recording. Sometimes people have accidents. It's unfortunate but necessary. Rachel's hands shook as she stopped the playback. This wasn't just fraud. This was murder. And she was holding the proof. At 6:30, she packed everything back into the backpack and left the hotel. The morning air was cold and damp, and the streets were still mostly empty. She walked to Riverside Park, taking a different route every few blocks, constantly checking behind her to see if anyone was following. The park was just starting to wake up. A few joggers passed by and an old man was feeding pigeons near the entrance. Rachel made her way to the fountain in the center, her eyes scanning everyone she saw. Which one was Vincent Torres? Rachel? She spun around. A man in his 40s stood a few feet away, wearing jeans and a worn leather jacket. He had graying hair, tired eyes, and the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much of the world's ugly side. How do you know my name? Rachel asked, her heart racing. I didn't tell you my name. I'm good at what I do, Vincent said calmly. After your email, I did some digging. Found footage from the storage facility security cameras. Ran your face through some databases. You're Rachel Foster, 28. Work in marketing at Thompson & Associates. Your car broke down yesterday morning, which is unusual because you're not a train person. But yesterday you took the 7:15 Executive Express. Rachel felt exposed, vulnerable. If you found all that, then Morrison can too. Probably already has, Vincent said, which is why we need to move fast. You said you have evidence? Rachel glanced around nervously before pulling out one of the USB drives from her jacket pocket. Everything's on here. Financial records, emails, recordings. Jennifer Martinez collected it all before she went into hiding. Vincent took the drive carefully like it was made of glass. Jennifer Martinez, Morrison's executive assistant. I've been trying to get someone inside that company to talk for 2 years. No one would. Too scared. Can you blame them? They killed David Chen for asking questions. Vincent's expression darkened. I had my suspicions about that accident. Never could prove anything. He pocketed the USB drive. How much danger are you in right now? I don't know. Morrison's people were at the storage facility last night. They know someone took the evidence. They'll have my face from the security footage by now. Then you can't go home. You can't go to work. You need to disappear for a few days while I verify this information and prepare it for publication. A few days? I can't just disappear. My roommate will freak out. My boss will fire me. Your boss firing you is the least of your problems, Vincent said bluntly. James Morrison has made people vanish before. If he knows you have this evidence, he'll come after you. The only thing that will keep you safe is getting this story out publicly. Once it's published, you become too visible to touch. But until then, you're a liability he needs to eliminate. Rachel felt sick. This was really happening. Her normal life was gone. Everything had changed the moment she picked up that letter on the train. Where am I supposed to go? I have a friend who runs a cabin upstate. It's remote, off the grid. You can stay there while I work on the story. I'll need 2, maybe 3 days to verify everything and get it ready for publication. 3 days? This is a massive investigation, Rachel. I need to confirm the financial records, verify the recordings are authentic, reach out to other sources. If I publish something this big and get even one detail wrong, Morrison's lawyers will tear it apart and the whole story gets buried. We only get one shot at this. Rachel knew he was right, but 3 days felt like an eternity. What about Jennifer? She's still at the company, pretending everything's normal. If Morrison suspects her, she's already in danger. The best thing you can do for her is help me get this published as fast as possible. Vincent pulled out a phone and handed it to her. This is a burner. It's only connected to my burner. Don't call anyone else. Don't contact your family or friends. Don't turn on your regular phone. As far as the world is concerned, you don't exist for the next few days. Rachel took the phone with trembling hands. This is insane. 3 days ago, my biggest problem was my car breaking down. Sometimes ordinary people end up in extraordinary situations, Vincent said. Jennifer chose you for a reason. She left that letter hoping someone brave enough would find it. And you called that number. You went to that storage unit. You're still standing here instead of running away. That takes courage. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Fear keeps you careful. Vincent checked his watch. I'm parked 2 blocks west. Blue sedan. Get in the back and stay down until we're out of the city. They walked separately, Vincent ahead and Rachel following at a distance. She kept expecting someone to grab her, to stop her, to drag her into a dark alley. But they made it to the car without incident. The drive to the cabin took nearly 3 hours. Vincent drove carefully, taking back roads and checking his mirrors constantly. They barely spoke. Rachel lay in the back seat staring at the roof of the car, wondering if Jennifer was okay. Wondering if Morrison already knew where she was. Wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake trusting a journalist she'd just met. The cabin was small and isolated, surrounded by pine trees with no neighbors in sight. Inside was basic but clean. A kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, and a living room with a wood stove. There's food in the pantry and firewood out back, Vincent said. No internet, no cable. Just some books and a radio. The important thing is that no one knows you're here. How will I know what's happening? If the story gets published? If Jennifer's okay? If Morrison's been arrested? I'll call the burner when I have updates. Until then, just stay put and stay quiet. Vincent headed for the door, then paused. Rachel, what you're doing matters. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're helping take down someone who's been hurting people for years. That means something. After he left, the silence was overwhelming. Rachel had never been so alone. She walked through the small cabin, checking the locks on the doors and windows. Then she sat on the couch and finally let herself cry. The fear, the stress, the exhaustion of the past 24 hours all came pouring out. When she was done, she wiped her eyes and looked around. This was her life now. Hiding in a cabin in the woods, waiting for a journalist to expose a murderer, hoping she'd live long enough to see justice done. She thought about Jennifer still going to work every day, sitting outside Morrison's office answering his calls, pretending she didn't know anything. That took a different kind of courage. The courage to smile at someone who'd killed your colleague, the courage to stay in the lion's den even when you knew the lion suspected you. Rachel pulled out the burner phone and stared at it, willing it to ring with good news. But it stayed silent. The first day passed slowly. Rachel tried to read but couldn't focus. She paced the cabin, looked out the windows at the endless trees, and jumped at every sound. The isolation was making her paranoid. Every snapping branch outside made her think someone had found her. The second day was worse. Still no call from Vincent. Rachel's mind spiraled into dark places. What if Morrison had gotten to him? What if the evidence wasn't enough? What if Jennifer had been caught? On the afternoon of the third day, the burner phone finally rang. Rachel grabbed it so fast she almost dropped it. Hello? It's Vincent. The story's going live in 1 hour. Every major news outlet is picking it up. We have enough evidence to put Morrison away for decades. The FBI is already preparing arrest warrants. Rachel's legs nearly gave out. It's really happening? It's really happening. You did it, Rachel. You and Jennifer. James Morrison's empire is about to come crashing down. What about Jennifer? Is she safe? There was a pause. I was about to ask you the same thing. I've been trying to reach her all day to get her reaction for the story. She's not answering her phone and she didn't show up for work this morning. Rachel's relief turned to ice-cold dread. What do you mean she didn't show up? Her apartment's empty. Neighbors said they heard shouting last night. Rachel, I think Morrison figured out she was the leak. The phone nearly slipped from Rachel's hand. After everything, after all of Jennifer's courage and sacrifice, Morrison had gotten to her first. We have to find her, Rachel said desperately. The FBI's already looking. Once the story breaks and Morrison's arrested, they'll make finding Jennifer their top priority. But Rachel, there's something else you need to know. What? Morrison knows who you are. Your photo's been circulating among his people since yesterday. You can't stay at the cabin much longer. Once he's arrested, you'll be safe. But until then, you're still in danger. Rachel looked out the window at the darkening woods. Somewhere out there, Morrison's people might already be looking for her, and somewhere else Jennifer was missing. The story was about to break. Justice was coming, but the question was whether it would come fast enough to save them both. Rachel couldn't just sit in the cabin knowing Jennifer was missing. She paced back and forth, the burner phone clutched in her hand, her mind racing through possibilities. Where would Morrison take her? What would he do to her? Was she even still alive? I'm coming back to the city, Rachel told Vincent on the phone. That's a terrible idea. Morrison's people are still out there. I don't care. Jennifer put herself in danger to expose him. I'm not going to hide in the woods while she's missing. Vincent was quiet for a moment. The story goes live in 40 minutes. Once it's out, everything changes. The FBI will move on Morrison immediately. Just wait until then. What if 40 minutes is too long? Rachel, listen to me. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen what happens when people go running into danger trying to be heroes. You can't help Jennifer if you get yourself killed. The best thing you can do right now is stay safe and let the authorities handle this. Rachel knew he was right, but every second felt like an eternity. She hung up and turned on the radio, flipping through stations until she found a news channel. They were talking about traffic and weather. Normal things. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, Jennifer's life hung in the balance. 38 minutes until the story broke. Rachel grabbed the backpack with the original evidence. If something went wrong, if Morrison somehow managed to stop the story, she still had the backup. She couldn't leave it here. She was about to walk out the door when the burner phone rang again. Rachel, don't hang up. It wasn't Vincent's voice. It was unfamiliar, calm, and cold. Her blood froze. Who is this? My name is James Morrison. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Rachel's hand tightened around the phone. The man who'd killed David Chen. The man who'd stolen millions. The man who had Jennifer. He was on the other end of this call. I don't know what you're talking about, Rachel said, trying to keep her voice steady. Please don't insult my intelligence. You took a backpack from a storage unit 3 nights ago. You've been working with that journalist, Vincent Torres. And right now you're hiding in a cabin 40 miles outside the city. I know everything, Rachel. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode. How did he know about the cabin? Had someone followed Vincent? Had they been watching the entire time? What do you want? Rachel asked. I want to make a deal. You give me every copy of that evidence, every USB drive, every file, and I'll let you walk away. You can go back to your normal life. No one has to get hurt. What about Jennifer? Miss Martinez made some very poor choices, but she's still alive for now. That can remain the case if you cooperate. Rachel felt rage building inside her. This man had ruined so many lives, and he was acting like this was just a business transaction. The story's already written. Vincent Torres is publishing it in less than 30 minutes. Your life is over whether I give you the evidence or not. Morrison laughed, a sound that made Rachel's skin crawl. You think one journalist's story will bring me down? I have lawyers who've been preparing for this possibility for years. I have judges in my pocket, prosecutors who owe me favors. By tomorrow morning, that story will be buried under a mountain of lawsuits and legal motions. Without the original evidence, it's just accusations. Vincent verified everything. The recordings, the financial records, all of it. Verified copies. Digital files that my legal team will argue were fabricated or doctored. But the original evidence? The physical documents, the original recordings, the unaltered files? Those are much harder to dispute in court. Which is why I need them back. Rachel's mind raced. He was right. She'd watched enough crime shows to know that digital evidence could be challenged. But she wasn't going to give up the only leverage she had. If I give you the evidence, what's to stop you from killing me and Jennifer anyway? Nothing, honestly. But you don't have much choice. I know where you are. I have people heading to that cabin right now. You can either wait for them to arrive and things get unpleasant, or you can bring me the evidence and maybe, just maybe, you both walk away from this. Rachel looked out the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the trees. She couldn't see anyone yet, but that didn't mean they weren't coming. How do I know Jennifer's really alive? There was a shuffling sound, then a woman's voice came on the line. Rachel, don't give him anything, just run. Get out of there. It was Jennifer. She sounded exhausted and scared, but alive. I'm not leaving you, Rachel said. You have to. If he gets that evidence, everything we did was for nothing. David's death, everything. Please, just, the phone was yanked away. Morrison's voice returned. As you can hear, Miss Martinez is alive. For now, you have 15 minutes to decide. Bring the evidence to the Morrison Tech building downtown. Come alone, or stay at the cabin and see what happens when my people arrive. The line went dead. Rachel stood frozen, her mind spinning. 15 minutes. The story would go live in 25 minutes. She couldn't give Morrison the evidence. But she couldn't let Jennifer die either. Then an idea hit her. It was risky and probably stupid, but it was the only place she had. She grabbed the backpack and ran to Vincent's car. He'd left the keys hidden under the floor mat in case of emergency. This definitely qualified. She started the engine and sped down the dirt road, gravel flying behind the tires. She called Vincent on the burner. The story has to go live early. Right now. What? Rachel, what's happening? Morrison called me. He knows where I am. He has Jennifer and he wants the evidence. If you publish now before I get there, it doesn't matter what he does. The truth will already be out. I can't just publish early. My editor needs to approve it. Legal needs to review it one more time. Vincent, please. Jennifer's life depends on this. Mine too. Just push the button. Send it out. We have enough evidence. You said so yourself. She could hear him breathing, thinking. If I do this and something goes wrong, if there's a mistake we didn't catch, my career is over. If you don't do this, 2 women die. Which matters more? Another pause. Then, I'll make the call. Give me 5 minutes. Rachel drove like she'd never driven before, pushing the car to its limits on the winding country roads. Her phone rang. Vincent again, it's live. The story just went out to every news outlet we partner with. It's spreading on social media. There's no stopping it now. Rachel felt a surge of relief and terror at the same time. Morrison doesn't know yet. He's expecting me at his building with the evidence. What are you going to do? I'm going to give him exactly what he wants. Rachel arrived at the Morrison Tech building 20 minutes later. The glass tower loomed against the night sky, still lit up on every floor. She walked through the front doors with the backpack over her shoulder, expecting security to stop her. But the lobby was empty. Morrison was expecting her. She took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into Morrison's office, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. James Morrison stood by the window, his back to her. Jennifer sat in a chair nearby, her hands bound. She looked tired but unharmed. Two large men in dark suits stood on either side of her. "Rachel Foster," Morrison said without turning around. "The woman who thinks she can destroy everything I've built." "Did you bring what I asked for?" Rachel dropped the backpack on his desk. "It's all there. Every file, every recording, every piece of evidence." Morrison finally turned to face her. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 50s, with sharp features and cold eyes. He walked to the desk and unzipped the backpack, pulling out the laptop and USB drives. "Smart girl. You made the right choice." "Did I?" "Because about 10 minutes ago, Vincent Torres published his story. It's on every major news site right now. The FBI probably already has warrants for your arrest." Morrison's confident expression faltered. He pulled out his phone and his face went pale as he scrolled through news alerts. His hand started shaking. "You're lying. This isn't possible. I told you. You told me you could bury one journalist's story. But you can't bury the truth when it's already everywhere. Every reporter in the country is covering this now. Your lawyers can't stop it. Your judges can't stop it. It's over." Morrison's face twisted with rage. He turned to his men. "Kill them. Kill them both." The men stepped forward, but then the elevator dinged. The doors opened and a dozen FBI agents poured into the office, weapons drawn. "James Morrison, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, bribery, and conspiracy to commit murder. Put your hands where we can see them." Morrison looked at Rachel with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've done. The people I'm connected to, the money I can access. I'll walk away from this, and when I do, I'll make sure you regret every second of this." "Maybe," Rachel said quietly, "but at least David Chen's family will know the truth. At least everyone you've hurt will get justice, and that's worth whatever happens to me." The agents handcuffed Morrison and his men and led them away. Another agent untied Jennifer, who immediately collapsed into Rachel's arms, sobbing. "You did it," Jennifer whispered. "You actually did it." "We did it," Rachel said. "Your evidence made this possible." The next few hours were a blur of police statements, FBI interviews, and medical checks. By the time Rachel and Jennifer walked out of the federal building, the sun was rising. News vans were everywhere, reporters shouting questions. Vincent was waiting by his car. "You two just brought down one of the most powerful men in the city. How does it feel?" Rachel thought about it. Exhausting, terrifying, and right. "The FBI said Morrison's connections run deeper than we thought. This investigation is going to uncover years of corruption across the city. Dozens of officials are going to fall because of what you two did." Jennifer shook her head. "I can't believe it's really over." "It's not over yet," Vincent said. "There's still trials, testimony, months of legal proceedings. But the hard part, the dangerous part, that's done." 6 months later, Rachel stood in a courtroom and watched James Morrison be sentenced to 35 years in prison. 7 city officials and 4 of his executives were also convicted. David Chen's widow hugged Rachel after the sentencing, thanking her through tears for giving her family closure. Jennifer had entered witness protection and moved to a different state with a new identity. But before she left, she and Rachel met one last time. "I keep thinking about that letter," Jennifer said. "I left 3 of them on different trains, hoping just one person would be brave enough to call. You were that person." "I'm not brave," Rachel said. "I was terrified the entire time. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway." They hugged goodbye, both knowing they'd probably never see each other again. Rachel eventually left her marketing job and started working for a nonprofit that helped corporate whistleblowers safely report fraud.